What a game. What a win for Duke against North Carolina. This game had everything. JD, like it had Duke, North Carolina, really, close game early on. Then Duke started to separate. They were up as many as 15. Then it was all North Carolina heading into, the close of the first half. All North Carolina to start the second half. And then it was all Duke to finish. And it was, as Dan Schulman said, it was a game of runs. And Duke just happened to have one more tonight than North Carolina.
So when we were down by as much as 7, that was the biggest lead in the second half before we then turned the afterburners on. Um, it was that test. It was that thing that you wanted to know about this team, that if they go down, do they fold or do they, because they're going to have games like this in ACC play, and certainly if they go on the 6-game winning streak in March Madness. So, but boy, that was exciting.
It had everything, right? It had the feeling of, when they were up by 15 of, all right, we're going to crush North Carolina again. That would feel good. Then it had the, oh boy, which we'll get into in a couple minutes here. Cooper Flagg's now in foul trouble. Now Cooper Flagg has 3 fouls. Now North Carolina has all of the momentum. And it was getting really dicey, especially the start of the second half. And it was, outside of the first, I don't know, 8 minutes of the Wake Forest game, it's the first time since Clemson where it's been like, oh, this is a real game. I'm nervous watching. Honestly, for me, it makes it much more fun because I'm much more into the game than when the past 7 games where Duke is typically up by 30 at some point early in the second half. Not to say, like, if we, go on to win a national title, I would be perfectly happy if we win all of the games by 30. But it's good to mix in
Also,
one of these.
also win them all by 1. I'll be happy.
Good point. Good point. As long as we win them, right? At the end of the day. Okay. Since this game had so much, before we get to the chat and we get into the stats and everything else, JD, let's go through this game in chronological order because for the first time in a long time, we have a real game to break down. And I thought, just to start off the game, there's 2 things that I noticed to start off this game. Number one, the North Carolina crowd was insane. Like, just absolutely electric. They were loud and energized from tip off until Duke was up by 15. And then once North Carolina got on their run, they were back, really into the game, especially after Coop's 3rd foul. And the other thing off the tip was North Carolina's defense and just overall intensity was that was the highest level I've seen North Carolina play defensively this whole year. I can't say I've watched every North Carolina game, but I've definitely watched more than 10, and that was the most impressive defensive performance I've seen from North Carolina.
Well, talk about the electricity in the stands. So at one point they did a quick who's who of who is in the place. Lawrence Taylor was even there. I mean, not, your generation's LT, my generation's LT. It was unbelievable, the star power that was there. And, it's kind of interesting because we've made I've made the comparison of that the memorable moments of Zion Williamson were were more electrifying. So, and let's just make this point that when The sneaker blew out. It blew out in front of who was sitting in the front row? President Obama. And so Duke, UNC, everybody shows up, and there was no question from the get-go that everybody that UNC could have in the stands there, they did. Tyler Hansbrough was there. So many of the, I guess maybe Michael Jordan wasn't there. Although, who knows? Maybe he was watching somewhere. But it had all of the things that you want from a Duke UNC game. And the first half, I absolutely was sitting there going, we were up by 15, and you'll take us through the first half. But we were up by 15, and I'm going, okay, I'm sitting back. And then I'm going like, uh-oh. Flag picks up his third foul. 15 points goes to 1 at halftime. I said, here we go again. It's another Duke UNC game. So go ahead, Jack. Take us through the first half.
So it starts off the game. North Carolina, as I said, playing great defense. They forced Duke into a tough opening possession, which Con Knipple nails a really tough mid-range shot from the corner. It kind of goes sort of back and forth from there. Both teams with several early turnovers, and it's 8-5 Duke at the end of the first segment with 15:50 to go, and Flag had already committed his first foul, which is very important, as all of you guys know. Now we come back after the first segment, and Malik Brown's in the game. And I knew there was some rumblings that he could be back for this one, but I don't know. I didn't believe them. I didn't think he'd be back. And all of a sudden I pick my head up and I'm like, that's Malik Brown. Oh, that's amazing. He's in the game, and then a minute or so later, Isaiah Evans checks into the game for his first action. And fast forward 3 minutes or so later, Cooper Flag picks up his second foul, the offensive foul, where he tries to create some separation from Powell, who I thought he was excellent defensively, whether it was especially on Con Knipple, on other guys. I thought he really energized them defensively. But it was a big second foul on Cooper Flag, and at the time, there was 12 minutes and 50 seconds remaining in the first half, and Duke was up 17-12. So obviously, anybody's gonna, bookmark that point in time. Cooper Flag, 2 fouls. What's gonna happen next? Well, Tyrese Proctor, big 3. Con Knipple had a bucket. Kaman Malawach tipped it in. North Carolina scores in between, but they end up finishing that second segment 24-17 Duke, with Trimble going up to hit a couple free throws, which he knocked down. But then it was a big Duke run to get them up to 36-21, which featured Sion with another. He had an awesome game, and especially an awesome first half. A lot of tough driving buckets for Sion. Proctor then really got it going. He had a nice driving. He had a big 3. Then he had a tough layup in the second part. I guess that second, third segment of the first half. Proctor really got it going, and as I said, Duke was up 36-21 with 7 minutes and 40 seconds to go. North Carolina had the ball coming back, and North Carolina starts off with a quick 5-0 run, and then Mason Gillis hits a 3, and so it's down to, at this point, a 13-point Duke lead. North Carolina scores again, and then Coach Shire puts in Cooper Flag, and at that point it's 39-28 with 5 minutes and 18 seconds to go. So North Carolina had chipped into the lead a little bit, but they hadn't made a big dent. Cooper comes in. He tries taking a pull-up jumper. He misses. The next play down the floor, North Carolina drives. Cooper does not contest, and we know how Cooper typically likes to defend the rim. He pretty much got out of the way. Easy North Carolina layup. He does make his next shot, but then they score again, and then Cooper picks up his third foul on the offensive foul. And I know that I'll pause here because I know both of us, before Cooper even got his third foul, did not like the decision from Shire because of what we had saw from Cooper in the Illinois game when they put him back in with 2 fouls towards the end of the first half. And he gave up a few buckets in that one because he was worried about picking up the third foul. Did not love the coaching decision separating him picking up the third foul. It was more so the fact that Cooper couldn't be as impactful as he always is defensively, and we had seen it before.
And it also seemed like it wasn't necessary. You could have we had an 11-point lead at that point, and it seemed as if it wasn't necessary to do it. And there was 7 minutes, you easily could have gotten to the second half with him with the 2 fouls, and then would have been able to do, which I'll get to, the Cooper flag second half later.
It basically, from that point on, it was the RJ Davis show. It was, listen, we may not like him, but we can respect him. And he had a really awesome game for especially the first, let's call it 26 minutes, 27 minutes of this game. He was hitting step back threes. I mean, I don't know what type of three he wasn't hitting, in fairness. He hit the pull up three where it hit the back of the rim in transition. He was hitting mid range jumpers. It was just RJ Davis everywhere, all the time. And there was a 4-minute stretch where Duke did not score. It got as close as 41-40. Sion James hit a pair of free throws, which brought the Duke lead up to 43-40. And then North Carolina got a bucket to close the first half, and so it ends up as 43-42 Duke at the half. So, JD, I'll let you take over here for the second half.
So the second half, it's a 1-point game, and you and I are texting back and forth to each other going, well, let's see what they do. And it got worse. Duke was up 1 at the half. Proctor hit a 2, so we got up by 3. RJ hits another 3. It's 45-45. UNC hits another 3. It's 48-45. Flag does hit a 2 there, so it's 48-47. Powell hits a 3, 50-47. RJ Davis, another 2, I think, at that point, 52-47. Timeout called by, I think it was
Shire.
Duke. Shire. It was a very good, that was absolutely the right time to do it. All right. We're down 5. Flag comes in, hits a 2. He gets fouled. He misses another one. In any case, Cadeau then hits over Mal, and they're up 54-49. K2 missed. Powell fouled by Sion, but not shooting. And then Lubin hits one over Flag. And at that point, and this is just after the end of the first break. At that point, it is 56-49. We're down 7. I'm going, oh my, we could actually lose this thing. At which point, Proctor hits a 2 to pull it within 5. Concanipple, then nice jam, 56-53. think Jackson gets fouled and only hits one, and then it's 57-53. Jackson later hits another two. In between that was the first of Flag's blocks, which will be one of the stories of the second half. He was a monster in blocking shots. Lead goes back 59-53. Sion hits a drive. It's 59-55. Flag follows 59-57. Flag fouled. Held my breath on that one. Didn't really know which way it was going to go.
I actually thought that was kind of a clear block because opposed to the first half when he picked up the charge, he drove right into Withers, which is it was a obvious call. I thought on this one, Flag clearly got around. I think it was Trimble, if I'm not mistaken. Could be mistaken. And I thought he made a clear effort to avoid the contact, and Trimble kind of moved a little bit into it.
Well, and so then Flag hits 2 for 2 from the free throw line, and we have us a tie game. The 7-point lead is erased, and it's a brand new game, and UNC commits a turnover. Foster is in the game, which was really great. K2 was the recipient of a really good pass. I forget from who.
It was a great pass by Malik Brown. Great
Malik
pass.
Brown. So we go up 61-59. Turnover by R.J. Davis, which started to occur because of a terrific call in the matchups to have Malik Brown guarding R.J. Davis. The size and
shut the water off. That's why I said good. He had a good first 26, 27 minutes. Once Duke made the adjustment to have Malik Brown guarding him, I don't think he scored. He may have. I don't think he scored the rest of the game.
We'll see. We're at the 10-minute mark. Foster hits just an where were you all year? But thank you for bringing it now. We're up at that point on his drive, 63-59. Sion hits another bucket, 65-59. Timeout UNC. Duke's on a 12-0 run. We were down, at 1.6. We're up 6, 12-0 run. Nice play. Jackson dumped it into Lubin. We're down 4. So still a game, 65-61. And then I had to check my eyes. I could not believe what I had just seen. And that was when Malik Brown hit the first of his three-pointers, and we go up 68-61. Malik Brown. Not only, Jack, were we completely shocked to see him in the game, his defense on R.J. Davis is superb, and he's hitting three-pointers. I'm like, and not just hitting three-pointers, it was gorgeous three-pointer. First one, nothing but net. Then so we're up 7 at that point. Flag again with an incredible block on Withers at the 8-minute mark. And in between, I don't know who on Duke, but there was yet another block. There were 5 blocks in the second half. It was just incredible. And then at that point, we're up 7 at the 8-minute mark. Cadeau does hit a 3, which does cut it to 68-64. So it's still a 4-point game with 6:34 to go. And then K2 hits a 3. K2 drives. Flag another block. James a great finish. Timeout UNC. 75-64. We're up 11 at that point. And honestly, we never looked back. It was just Foster came up with a block. Flag had another block.
Let's
It was,
let's
and
all
then
right. Let's go through um, some of the stats for today. And so
all right.
forget the stats actually. Put stats aside. Let's just talk about some of the individual performances because this was a total team effort by Duke. And I thought, we always do the medals at the end here. And if you've enjoyed, the program so far, please give us a like. It'll help us out. I almost feel like I could do it for each half today, or tonight, I should say, because in the first half, I thought Sion James was just phenomenal with his ability to get to the bucket and score, but also because of his ability with his size to switch between guarding, Davis, then in part because North Carolina's bigs aren't too big, for lack of a better term. He could he had no problem guarding Lubin, who's 6'8", 230. Like it wasn't, and Mal, who's typically been pretty good, guarding smaller players this season. He didn't have his best night today guarding out on the perimeter, but thankfully Malik Brown was there in the second half. I thought Concanipple was awesome in the first half. I mean, he had a great game, but especially in the first half when they didn't have Cooper. He made a number of tough shots. He hit his threes. He had some rough moments in the first half with a couple of turnovers, but I really loved his ability to respond and just go the next play. And then Proctor, I thought he didn't get off to a great start, but 5 minutes in or so, he really found his rhythm and was scoring not just from three. He had a pull up three. He had one, I think, like it was a catch and shoot, but then he was also able to get to the bucket. He got to the free throw line, and then the second half, I mean, yes, Cooper flag, but Malik Brown was awesome with his ability to guard R.J. Davis on the perimeter, what he did defensively for Duke, and then, as you said, hitting the 2 3-pointers. And man, Caleb Foster does not play in the Wake Forest game, does not play in the first half of this game, comes in with about 11 minutes and 30 seconds to go. And I think, how many minutes did he end up playing tonight? I think he ended up playing 9 minutes, so it only came out for two minutes or so after he came into the game, and he had a really positive impact on the game. He had the nice drive, he had the block that you were talking about. There was also a play which won't show up on the stat sheet where it was like the ball was kind of being pinballed around, and Foster dives and pokes it out, and he pokes it towards Sion, who gets the fast break bucket, which was a really nice finish. And he had like a tough rebound. It was just a great game for Caleb Foster, who, as you said, kind of where has this been from Caleb Foster? But honestly, who cares? We needed it in this game, and he was able to provide it. And really, gotta give a lot of credit to him for being ready to play in that moment.
So, so the medals in the second half, it would have gone, I think, for total dominance and block shots, and the fact that he was playing with 3 fouls. The gold in the second half clearly goes to Cooper. Not followed that far behind by Malik Brown, who is playing his defensive. He just shuts down R.J. Davis, and then hits a pair of threes, so much so that he attempted a third three, and he missed that
awesome.
one. Came off the front of the rim, but each time he hit them, they were impactful because when he hits the second one, it had been just after Trimble had hit a three, so 4:22 to go, down 8. Not impossible.
Yep.
But then right away, Malik Brown, our secret weapon 3-point shooter hits another one, and that's what broke the back there. And it was an 11-point lead, and
But
UNC just didn't.
by the way, because I'm looking at the play by play as you're saying it, so you're exactly right. You know, with his second three, his first three was also after a little bit before. You know, you had mentioned when Cadeau hit his three to cut it to four, and then Knipple hit his three to bring it back to seven. And just a couple minutes before that, Lubin had a bucket to cut it to two, and then Brown hits his first three, which brought the lead back up to seven. So not only does he hit two threes, they were timely, important threes for Duke to combine with his defense. Welcome back, Malik Brown, who, you know, I know both you and I in the first half, he picked up two quick fouls. We thought he might be a little bit rusty. And apparently he just needed those handful of minutes. I don't even think he played 5 minutes with the fouls he picked up. Those couple of minutes that he played in the first half to shake off the rust. And what a performance by Malik Brown. What a game by Duke.
Well, I think the most important thing for us is in the pregame, you were saying, I said we're going to go at a 10-game winning streak. And one of the things that you said was it may not be the worst thing in ACC play to lose a game because that would be good for the tournament. Well, I think this was a little bit better because we're in hostile territory, not a neutral court. We're down by 7 in the second half. And you could just feel the whole thing slipping away. It was a total gut check. And these guys are special. They really are, because I think you wanted to say how, and I think you could go to the stats for a little bit to make the point, how much so many people contributed to this comeback win. And it was just great.
It was great. It was great. I am going to skip the stats for today because we've got a lot of people in the chat, and we're already about half an hour in here. So I'll read them off before I go to the chat, just for authenticity purposes, since we do it each time. All right, you want to know what? We'll do it really quickly here. I gotta make an adjustment. I did forget to put in the new stats from today in my rush, so I got them in now. So, Cooper Flag, I also have the minutes, which is pretty cool because we typically don't have that. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. He somehow played 29 minutes. I don't even know how that's possible, but he did.
He played the entire second half, and he was out for about 11 minutes in that stretch.
He didn't shoot the ball well today, 6 of 15, but he was extremely impactful. I don't have his blocks here. Oh, he had 4 blocks today. There you go.
Four. So I had it as 3, missing 1. He was unbelievable on defense.
Proctor, 16 points. I'm going to just try to get through this rapid fire before we go to the chat. A couple rebounds for Proctor. He also knocked down 2 threes. Sion James had 16 points on 6 of 8 shooting. He played 35 minutes. He had 8 rebounds and 3 steals. Con Knipple played 39 minutes. 17 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, and a steal. Kama Malawach, not his best night, but he did have 9 rebounds for Duke. Malik Brown had 8 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and that really doesn't tell the story of Malik Brown at all, although he did knock down the 2 threes. Mason Gillis had 1 3-pointer today. I don't think he played in the second half. I thought he gave us some good minutes, though, in the first half.
He did.
Evans knocked down his 3 free throws. had a couple of rebounds, did not play in the second half, and Caleb Foster had a couple of points, a rebound, an assist, and a block. The only thing I want to point out on the negative for Duke, we just had a ton of turnovers in this game.
Uncharacteristic. So what was the total at the end of the game?
Finished with 14. I think I, I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly. We had 13 pretty before the 10-minute mark, certainly of the second half. So that
It,
changed
it
the
did,
flow.
because I think where you're going with this is it was bad. We were turning the ball over. And then in that period in which we then knew we were taking back the game, there may have been one turnover.
Yes.
So, all right, Jack, let's go to the chat.
All right. CJ Cav. I like the immediate reaction, fellas. Thanks. You're welcome. This game has my heart racing, and that hasn't happened in a while now. What a difference Brown was tonight. Those 2 threes and his D on RJ was clutch. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Basigman 12. C. Foss was really good tonight. He certainly was. Pay the Piper. Good evening, gents. Good evening to you, sir. Much too close for my liking. Late first half and early second. But Duke held on, and the crazies are happy. Kudos to UNC. Wasn't expecting that much of a push. Congrats to Coach and the boys. Regular season champs. 1 banner in the bag. 2 to go. Jump in at any point, JD. Lawrence Freeman, a championship. Go ahead.
No, I was waiting for Lawrence as soon as you're done.
Okay. A championship and a record. What a satisfying night.
So, to Lawrence Freeman, we completed the North Carolina Revenge Tour, 5-0. And
well, you never know. ACC tournament. Just
no, that's a regular. Sorry, that's a regular season for me. For me, that's regular season. We won the 5 games. We'll see what happens. Okay. And the other point is, it was Lawrence early on said, could we run the table? We didn't miss 20-0 by much.
A slip, as far as I'm concerned.
A slip on the court in the Clemson game, and Lawrence Freeman would have had his 20-0.
Yeah, I mean, it does go to show you the level, as you've talked about all year with the ACC, because you've got Duke at 19-1, and I believe both Clemson and I believe Louisville as well was 18-2. So there's the haves and have-nots certainly this year in the ACC.
Well, it means that we're going to get tested by one of them.
Yep.
In the ACC
That's
tournament, which is another good matchup for us to have before the start of March Madness.
Joe M. Let's go Duke. SEC fans wonder why game day at Chapel Hill, but they don't know this is the biggest rivalry. I will agree with you, it's the biggest rivalry, but as great of a game as this was, the Auburn-Alabama game was just a little bit better today. Going to overtime, that was back and forth the entire game, similar to this one, but the runs weren't quite as big. It was much more closely contested, and I really am looking forward to Duke playing. I mean, we've talked about a lot Auburn, but I think Duke-Alabama would be a great game as well, in a really close contest.
I mean, our pathway may very well be Alabama-Auburn in the semis, Alabama-Auburn in the finals. True. And those are going to be wars.
Pay the Piper. End score was close to my prediction of 85-70. I'm glad you brought that up, Pay the Piper. You won tonight. You were the closest. Only 4 points off. We did have one other person who was 5 points off, which is, I mean, damn close. But other than that, a lot of us thought this would be us included, JD and I. It was Captain Keenakeet who was 5 points off, but a lot of us thought this would be a little bit more high scoring and a little bit more of a separation. But shout out to you, Pay Piper. You win. You are one of the winners so far on the season. If you get another one, you will tie Wes and Susan at the top of the leaderboard.
A comment for Pay the Piper, which is, I bet at the end of the first half you weren't quite certain if you had the right score.
It was at the end of the first half. It was looking like the only person who was going to be right was the one UNC fan who left their score prediction. So it wasn't looking like a good night for all of us Duke fans. But boy, did that turn around. Lawrence Freeman, Foster, and Brown were huge in the second half. They were awesome. Quick segue from me. Coach Shire did not. I thought he had a poor decision to put Cooper Flagg in the first half with 2 fouls. Forget the result, as I said, of him picking up his third. I just didn't like the decision based off what we had already seen with Cooper, right?
Right.
But we can say that was a bad decision. Also have to give him credit for putting in Caleb Foster in the second half because there's no way I would have done that. And I know you wouldn't have done that. So the fact that that panned out, I mean, it certainly looks better based off the result, but he had a feeling and it worked out, and then he let Caleb continue to play.
Well, the other decision, which I don't know, Jack, if you saw the dynamic between Jay Lucas and John Shire, I didn't see them talking to each other at all during the game. Normally, Jay is like really enthusiastic, very. So I wonder, since Jay Lucas is the defensive coordinator, who made the decision to put Malik Brown and RJ Davis, because that too was brilliant.
Yep, and just playing. I mean, we've saw that a lot earlier in the year where there'd be some matchups where Brown would play more minutes than Mal because he was more effective defensively, and we haven't had Malik in a few games now. So, but yeah, it's something we'll never know. I know on the broadcast they said Coach Shire was. I didn't see. By the way, I didn't see what you're talking about. Not that it wasn't there, I just didn't see it. But they did say that Coach Shire said to Coach Lucas that basically he gets it. It's time. You should go now, kind of thing. But it's hard. It's always hard to know whether that's what he's saying to the media, but inside he's frustrated about it, and it's something that we'll probably never know.
He's your defensive coordinator and your main recruiter, and sitting next to you. And because it's a business, as you have taught me over the years, the decision was made as soon as the season's over. Gotta go.
All right, next. CJ Cav. Our transfers really got us this one. Yeah. Sion was solid all game long on both sides of the court. Brown locked up RJ in the second half, and Mason held us together when Cooper was in foul trouble. I'm glad you brought up Mason. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, it's a really good point about Mason, because I think I texted you that Mason was getting a lot of minutes in the first half. So the comment is spot on that Mason was in with Sion for a lot of that first half, especially after Coop picked up his third. And then when you think about it, going all the way back to the beginning of the season, Malik Brown, Mason Gillis, Sion James, rock solid Sion James, just his presence on the court. You gave him the gold medal in the first half, and I thought that the three of them are a critical part. Now, those three guys aren't going to win a championship unto themselves. Not when Con Knippel had 17, 16. Proctor finished with 14.
He had 16.
16. And how many points did Coop finish with?
Coop had 15. So you had Khan with 17, Proctor and Sion with 16 apiece, and Cooper with 15. Really well balanced scoring from Duke. Okay. Let's keep going here. So, actually, one thing I almost forgot. It's the third time this year where when Coop has had to come out of a game, whether it was foul trouble like this game or the Louisville game, or if I remember correctly, it was the Florida State game when he got hit in the face and had to come out because he had his eye. It's the third time this year when Mason Gillis has come in for Cooper Flag and played, 10 minutes or so, and Duke has actually like increased their lead when Mason Gillis has come in for Cooper Flag. It's the third time he's been able to do that. It's a really impressive from Mason Gillis to just be able to come into games in tough situations and be able to have the positive impact that he's been able to do. Joe M. Winning this game with the amount of turnovers we had really says something about this team. It reminds me of the game at Wake Forest in some ways, where Duke was up by a little bit different timing wise, but Duke's up by 13 at the half, and it was 17-1 Wake Forest. You end up getting to a similar spot when Wake Forest was up by like 5 or 6, and then Duke kind of took over and ended up winning, but similar mentality, I would say. Pay the piper. Medals. Gold. Sion. Yeah, I agree for the whole game. Silver. Khan. I'm with you. Bronze. Ty. Proctor or Coop. I would go with Cooper. I would go with Cooper because I know Proctor's impact in the first half was awesome. But Cooper and Proctor had a good start to the second half. But Cooper's all-around performance in the second half won Duke the game.
It did, although the only thing missing is, and there's got to be other colors or types of metals other than gold, silver, and bronze, titanium or something.
Platinum.
Platinum. I mean, Malik Brown gets left out of that and completely shuts down RJ and is hitting 3-pointers and is. So I don't know how we give out. There aren't enough awards to give out.
There aren't. And there's, like Mason Gillis and Caleb Foster, I'd want to give some sort of recognition for what they were able to do. But yeah, there aren't enough medals tonight. I agree. He also continued, credit to Coach Shire for timely timeouts. Also credit to the UNC crowd. Impressive, noisy, and jacked environment. Yeah, it made it a lot of fun to watch on TV. And credit to all of you guys who have commented throughout the year. Also, I want to give a shout out to all you guys who watch and don't comment, because I know that's typically who I am as a viewer, and you guys make you're most of our audience, right? We pay more attention to the people who comment, but I want to give you guys a shout out because you're helping us grow this channel, and it's been a lot of fun on this ride. So please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Brian Kennedy he's kind of with you, JD. He says gold goes to Brown. It's hard for me to, there's not a definitive list today. There's not, and there's 5 guys who I really believe were in contention tonight. That's why I took a cop out and tried to do it in 2 halves, because couldn't figure it out. So kudos to you guys for putting, you know, for actually making real awards here. Pay the piper. RJ tried his best. UNC went 9 of 27 from three, turned Duke over 9 times, 9 steals. Duke needs to reduce both numbers. Yeah, I mean the turnovers was really what kept North Carolina in the game because they, as we saw in the second half, could not score on a set Duke defense. They really struggled, especially once Malik Brown was guarding RJ Davis. But they scored a lot of times in transition, whether that was off of a Duke miss or a Duke turnover, and a lot of that was in that last 8 minutes of the first half and start of the second half where they were able to get out and run. And once Duke was able to stop that from happening, the game really turned.
With regard to turnovers, today's turnovers were uncharacteristic. We have had most of our games where we have been 4, 5, 6 turnovers. But to the point made about you can't win a game with 14 turnovers, you turn the ball over that many times against Auburn and Alabama, especially Alabama, it's not going to end well.
Agreed. The one thing, because I went back to look at the stats here, I knew we were shooting well. I didn't realize exactly how well we shot for this game. As a team, 56% from the field, 47%, 9 of 19 from three, and 85%, 11 of 13 from the free throw line. So while we may have turned it over far too many times for this Duke team, we shot the lights out of the ball, especially the first 12 minutes of this game. But we made up for it in other ways. All right, where was I? Brian Kennedy. Malawach really struggled tonight. He did. He did. He didn't. He couldn't. He didn't have an impact offensively. We couldn't get him open for lobs. And defensively, while he did have a good amount of rebounds, which was important, he couldn't stay in front of RJ Davis or Cadeau. And we've seen him have success in similar matchups. You know, like the Pittsburgh game always comes to mind. He did a really good job against Jalen Lowe. But I think these North Carolina guards, they're a little bit shiftier. They're smaller, which I think gave Malawach a little bit more difficulty. So I'm curious whether this ends up being like a one-off or something that other teams look to try to expose with Malawach moving forward.
Well, one of the differences with Malawach's ability to guard, let's say, RJ Davis is RJ Davis, this is his 5th year. And the idea of a big coming out, he knows what he wants to do, as opposed to a freshman who's getting harassed by a 7'2" guy who's moving his feet really well. I think RJ was very prepared for, Mal could come out. So,
good point. Brian also says Foster played great tonight. Shout out to coach for having him in there in crunch time.
Well, you know what I think he had tonight that was missing? In so many of his games, he has been tentative.
Yes.
He's been used at garbage time. He was put in when the game was still very much on the line. And there was something, if you looked at his expression on his face, there was some aggression. There was some of that old part about Caleb that we love. And it was really evident tonight. And, if you're always we talked about it so much, we hope we're going to need Caleb for a run, says John Shire. Well, it was the last regular season game of the ACC, and that aggression finally came out. So, can he do it in the ACC tourney?
And he got in the Florida State game, he had like a stretch of 3 to 4 minutes where he got to play while the game, in the first half, and he didn't play well. And then he didn't
No.
play at all against Wake Forest. And I think what you said, in terms of we know that's what's been frustrating about Foster this season is we know he's capable of being a much better player, at least a better player. And it's just that's what's been frustrating is he just hasn't been able to show it. But what a great time for him to find it a little bit. And I thought his defense was pretty good as well. Outside the block, he did a decent job when he was guarding R.J. Davis. Um, just major credit to Caleb Foster. Joe M. Another Foster comment. Man, shout out to you guys. Putting Foster in the game really seems to throw off North Carolina. I'm not sure about that one, but I don't know. I think he played well. I'm not sure. I don't know. What do you think, JD?
I actually think that to the comment, I wasn't expecting to see Foster tonight.
Yeah,
And based on the first half when they were up by 15, I didn't think we'd see Foster. I thought we'd see, Isaiah Evans actually didn't have an Isaiah Evans type of game. And so the idea that Coach Shire went to Foster and he responded really well. So it may very well be looking at game tapes. Never thought he was going to be in there.
good point. I didn't think of that. All right. Oh, my bad, Joe M. All right. Pay the piper. Agree with Brian's comments. Malawach had a tough game. Ball control was an issue. He did a few times have a tough time catching the ball. We also didn't. We had some tough passes to him, but he couldn't. He didn't make an impact offensively. And this, if you're looking for the concerns with Malawach tonight, you saw a few of them for sure. Whether that was
So the only thing I'll add, he had 9 rebounds, but there were other times where there were several Duke players on the ball. He may not have gotten credit for the rebound, but his hand was there, and it enabled the ball to still be up for grabs, and maybe someone else pulled in the ball. And I noticed that a couple of times. So overall, everyone's right with regard to not Mal's best game. But I thought his height and everything was certainly happy he was on the court.
right. Right. I think we're grading him a little bit toughly here
We
because
are?
he had been playing really well coming into this one. So we expect more from Malawach. And to your point, his rebounding and his size was helpful and useful, but there was too many other things he didn't do well tonight. So we're expecting you to have a bounce back game, Mr. Malawach, next time out.
Well, especially on the lob passes to him, there's 2 parts of that. Either it's usually K2, it's Sion, it's Coop that are looking for him, but he's got to be signaling with his I got it.
Yep.
And that was missing.
Agreed. Wes Midnight Assassin. Let's go, Duke. I like that show we wait. I like that show we can win if Cooper gets in foul trouble. Okay. Yeah. I mean I think I was going through it before, like with the Mason Gillis example. We've seen it now a handful of times where we've had to miss Cooper for extended period, 6 to 10 minutes, and Duke has been able to play well on a few occasions this season. So to your point, Wes, it's a really positive sign.
Jack, I think you pointed out that it wasn't quite the Zion Williamson block shot when he got the guy on 3-point range.
Yep, from the
It may
corner.
be, it may be, and I'm such a fan of Mal that I may just be going the other way, that Coop's 4 block shots are basically, you know, maybe they could have, one of them, 2 of them could have wound up with Mal, but Coop was not going to be denied. That second half of his, from the defensive perspective, along with Malik Brown, were just extraordinary. I mean, it's somebody will have the highlight reel of the 4 block shots.
When he, I think he blacks out after some of his blocks because he just starts screaming at the crowd and he's just flexing and he go his dunks. He really, especially the big ones. He'll scream and flex, but the blocks, it's like a whole nother level. Like I'm sure if you asked him like post game, what were you thinking? He wouldn't be able to remember. The one thing about Cooper though is I'm sure he's very well media trained, so I'm sure he'd give a really appropriate answer as to what's going through his mind. Something that you'd like to hear from somebody like your coach. But let's move on. Let's see. Wes also says we'll be number 1 on Monday when the polls come out. Yeah, I agree. Auburn, man, there's still a chance, based off of what other people have said, that Auburn's still the number 1 team overall seed for the brackets as of right now. But for the AP poll, I don't see any way that Duke is not the number 1 team come Monday.
Auburn had 2 losses. We had a dominant game, and then on the road in our rivalry game, we come back and win, winning by 13 points. So I'm going to be shocked if we're not number 1 in the AP poll.
By the way, this was a very different North Carolina team than we played last time. I know it's a different Duke team, different North Carolina team, and depending on how you want to look at it, you can give credit to Coach Davis, or you could say, why didn't he make these adjustments months ago? And depending on how you want to look at it, if you're a North Carolina fan, I'm sure you might feel probably you're leaning more towards the latter than the former. Brian Kennedy, guys, all of our losses were 1 possession games. Crazy to think. Yeah, it is. It is crazy to think. And I mean, Kansas isn't ranked anymore. Kentucky, they're somewhere in the 15 to 17 range. They won today, and Clemson has turned out to be the best loss that Duke has had. And to your point, Brian, all 1 possession games. The Clemson one was really tough, but we'll lay that to rest. Hopefully, we get to see him again. All right, pay the piper. JD is 100% accurate. I was definitely not confident in my score prediction at the end of the first. I don't blame you. I was really nervous. I was really nervous.
Yeah, I was nervous.
It was scary. It was scary for a bit there. All right. Captain Kinakit, who, if I remember, Captain Kinakit was our second closest with the score prediction, only 1 point further away than Pay the Piper. Really close. Championship level teams respond to adversity. My voice cracked a little bit there. I like this comment. Man was trying to make a play before he caught the ball. That's a really good point. It's a really good point. It seemed like, even though Duke was up early, it seemed like they were a bit unsettled as a team. and I think it's a really good point. I don't feel like Malawach ever really settled into this game, and he was like sped up, which is exactly what you're saying, Captain Kiniki. And lastly, sloppy play the first half, ton of unforced turnovers. When we decide to lock in on defense, we're elite. Yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, I think our offense hurt our defense in the first half because we couldn't set up, because we were giving up. We turned it over a lot, so they were scoring in transition. And once that slowed down, we were able to set up our defense, and we made the switch to put in Malik Brown, and that was the Duke defense that we were accustomed to seeing this year.
I think we would definitely, when Flag picks up the third foul in the first half, and all of a sudden, it was the first time he had 3 fouls in the first half. And I think it probably went through every Duke player's mind. Wait, we may not have Flag for the rest, playing at his intensity for the rest of the game. Now, he proved that comment completely wrong. But, that lead of 11 goes to 1 at the half. And, there are crazier things than, the fact that he picks up his third foul, what it does to the psyche of the Duke team. Cooper, it's always that the Duke players will feel that, okay, we're going to do our thing, and we are good, and they are elite. And I think they were playing just fine without having to put him back into the game. But I bet it crossed everyone's mind that it was his third foul. He had to go out of the game, and all of a sudden it's a 1-point game.
All right. The one thing I want to say is we were in our text. We were talking about potential things that could cost us in the tournament, and I'll say my thing was Cooper Flag foul trouble. We've seen it a few times this year where he's gotten into foul trouble. The one thing I didn't say to you, which I kind of thought of afterwards, was look, this is Coach Shire's third season as a head coach. He does not. While he may have won a title as a player, he's not like Coach Pearl, who's been around as a head coach for 20 years. Or Nate Oates doesn't have nearly as much experience. Who else is there? Rick Barnes. He's been a prominent head coach for 20 plus years. So I do think
you got the wrong Rick.
Rick Pitino. That's a good one. Yep. I think that is one thing that we have to remember as Duke fans is, look, a lot of these teams have coaches, or Houston with Coach Sampson. These teams have coaches with at least 10 years of head coaching experience, and in often cases more than 20. And to your point, Rick Pitino. So it is something where other coaches, and we just lost one of the great brains that we had on the coaching staff. So it puts even more pressure on Shire with Coach Lucas. Best of luck to you at Miami, but he's no longer part of Duke now. So it is something that I am going to be cognizant of, moving forward.
Let's face it, if you're locked in a 70-70 game and there's like 3 minutes remaining, does all of that experience in the tournament that Rick Pitino and now 6th ranked, 7th ranked St. John's, does that play a role as, here's what we do, just listen to me, here's what we're going to do, because I've been there many times before.
the only coach to have won a national championship with two teams, Rick Pitino. All right, last couple comments. I'll let you respond to this one. Taylor says, "Let's go UNC."
Yeah, let's go UNC. Why not? They're going to play in the ACC tournament. They may win a game or two. They're not winning the championship. And let's go probably means they're building for next year. They have a good
Yeah.
recruiting class coming in next year. And Hubert Davis, absolutely, first year as a head coach, he takes them all the way. So his trajectory as a head coach,
Yeah.
exactly. So UNC, if it was, meant to say, let's go UNC, I think there's a lot they can build on. They have a good class coming in next year. It's just not going to be their year this year.
I think at this point they have to win the ACC tournament. Otherwise, it turns into let's go UNC in the NIT.
Correct.
All right, Captain Kinnicky, I was stunned. He let him back in there up 11. We were too. Chris Carrawell has been there. He'll help. He certainly will. He certainly will. And it's going to be important to have Coach Carrawell there, who is the guy who was the head coach for Duke when Coach Shire was sick for the game at SMU. And lastly, Brandon Guralexka. Let's go!
And I think we leave it at that.
And that's where we're leaving it. So if you haven't already, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, drop your comments, and share it with a friend. And we will see you guys for the ACC tournament, the first game preview. I'm not sure who that's going to be, but we'll have that up either Monday or Tuesday. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.